The mansion gates opened with a metallic groan as a dusty taxi pulled up. From it stepped a barefoot girl, holding a thin plastic bag and wearing a faded dress. Her eyes, large and curious, scanned the towering pillars, sparkling glass, and marble statues of the Obasanjo estate. Her name was Amina. She had come from Kogi State, with nothing but the name of a woman who once worked in Lagos and owed her grandmother a favor. Now, she was standing on the threshold of the biggest house she had ever seen, ready to become a maid. Inside, the Obasanjo family barely noticed her arrival. Madame Efe, the matriarch, waved her off toward the back without looking up from her phone. "Put her in the storeroom, and tell her not to pray all over the place. This is a house, not a mosque." The house help who took her in, Mercy, gave her a sympathetic glance. "Don't let them hear you pray too loud. Madam hates that." But Amina only smiled. "Even if I whisper, God hears." Her assigned space was a damp storeroom near the laundry, with a stained mattress and a plastic bucket. No closet, no fan, no lock. But Amina bowed gently and whispered, "Thank you, God, for this roof." The next morning she was awake before 5. She swept the courtyard, scrubbed the marble floor with her bare hands, and dusted every chandelier before anyone else stirred. When Madame Efe came downstairs, the house already sparkled. Zara, the 23-year-old daughter, noticed her kneeling to pray beside the flower pots one afternoon. "Is she praying again?" Zara sneered. "What is she praying for? A miracle to stop mopping floors." Her younger brother, Dapo, laughed. "Maybe heaven has VIP rooms for maids." Still, Amina prayed. She did not retaliate. She didn't complain. She just prayed morning, afternoon, and night. Even the gardener began calling her Sister Amen. By the end of the week, they all knew her name. But not for her work ethic, for her silent, persistent faith. And for some reason, that irritated them more than anything. By the second week, Amina's name was known in every corner of the Obasanjo mansion, not because she caused trouble, but because she refused to stop praying. She didn't pray loudly. She didn't quote scriptures or interrupt anyone's business. But every night, as the household lights dimmed and the family retreated to their private suites, Amina would slip out into the backyard, kneel near the flower pots, and whisper her prayers to the heavens. And every night, Zara noticed. Zara had never worked a day in her life. Her nails were acrylic, her hair always freshly styled, and her words sharpened like blades. She'd gone through 5 housemaids in the past year alone. Now, she'd made it her mission to break Amina's spirit. One afternoon, after a birthday brunch, Zara gathered her friends in the sitting room. Laughter echoed off the marble walls as champagne glasses clinked and designer heels tapped the floor. Then Zara turned her phone toward the group. "Ladies," she said with a sly grin, "you won't believe what I caught last night." She tapped play on a short video. Amina, kneeling in the dark, head bowed in prayer, lips moving silently. "Is she praying for a rich husband or a magic mop?" Someone laughed. Another girl chimed in. "She should pray for a better wig." Laughter erupted. Upstairs, in the servant quarters, Amina sat folding Madame Efe's laundry. She had no idea she'd become a joke. No idea that her moment with God had become viral content in a group chat named Maid Watch. The next morning, she walked into the kitchen to find her slippers missing. She searched under cabinets, behind trash bins, even outside near the line, but they were gone. Mercy looked uneasy. "Don't say I told you." But Zara threw them in the bin. "She said you needed to walk closer to God." Amina didn't flinch. She simply stepped out barefoot and continued her chores. That night, as she knelt again beside the roses, her knees pressing into gravel, she whispered, "Ya Allah, let my silence be my strength. Let the storm pass without me breaking." Behind the curtains, Zara filmed her again, this time adding fake angel wings using an Instagram filter. She uploaded it with the caption, "Our holy ghost maid doing overtime you. Number pray for what?" It got 500 likes in under an hour. But not all laughter is without consequence. One evening, during dinner, Zara spilled a glass of red wine on the ivory carpet. She snapped her fingers. "Amina, come clean this up before it sets in." Amina walked in quietly with a rag and cleaner. As she scrubbed, Zara deliberately knocked the glass over again. Oops. The wine splashed on Amina's scarf and skirt. Everyone went quiet. Even Chief Obasanjo lowered his newspaper to glance her way. But Amina simply wiped the floor again, then stood. Zara leaned back smugly. "Don't you have anything to say, Maid?" Amina looked at her calm, unbothered, and said softly, "When you pour wine on the floor, it stains. But when you pour cruelty on someone who prays, it returns to the one who poured it." Silence. Zara blinked. Chief Obasanjo stared. Madame Efe rolled her eyes. "Go clean yourself up, Amina. And next time, dodge the wine." Amina bowed. "Yes, Ma." Back in the storeroom, Mercy whispered, "Why don't you ever answer them back?" Amina smiled. "Because the one I serve is answering them already. I just don't need to watch." And that night, she prayed barefoot under the moonlight, with peace in her heart and the first seeds of justice blooming quietly beneath her. The first time Amina saw him, he was sitting quietly by the gate with a tattered hat in his lap and a walking stick resting by his side. His clothes were faded, and his beard was white and long like river foam. He didn't speak, he didn't beg, he just sat, as if waiting for something. The guards ignored him, the drivers scoffed. One of the cooks even called him Ghost Grandpa. But Amina saw something different. That afternoon, after her chores, she filled a flask with hot tea, placed a piece of bread in a napkin, and quietly slipped outside to where the old man sat. "Peace be upon you, Baba," she said gently, kneeling before him. "Will you drink something warm?" He blinked at her slowly, then smiled, revealing a few missing teeth. "May your hands never know hunger," he said, voice rough but kind, "and your feet never tire on the road to destiny." Amina blushed. "My name is Amina," she said. "I know," the old man replied. From that day on, he came every Sunday, always at the same time. Always alone. Always quiet. And each time, Amina brought him tea, bread, sometimes boiled yam or rice, even if it meant skipping her own meal. Zara noticed him too. "Why is that scarecrow always sitting by the gate?" she asked one morning as she peered out the window. Mercy shrugged. "He just comes to sit. Doesn't talk to anyone but Amina." Zara rolled her eyes. That explains it. She's probably praying with him too. We've got a church camp growing in our backyard." That Sunday, Zara decided to spy. From behind the curtain, she watched as Amina handed the old man a small plastic bowl of rice and a bottle of water. Then she heard Amina say something odd. "Do you need medicine, Baba? Your hands are shaking more than last week." The old man smiled. "Don't worry about these hands, my daughter. They've signed many things in this life. One day, they will sign something for you too." Zara laughed out loud from inside. Later that evening, during dinner, she couldn't help but jab. "So, Amina, when does your prophet friend plan to fly into heaven?" Amina didn't look up from her dishwashing. "He is no prophet, just a kind man." "Well," Zara said smugly, "I think it's cute you have a prayer buddy. Maybe he'll bless you with a new mop." Even Chief Obasanjo smirked. But the old man kept coming. One Sunday, a heavy rain fell. The mansion flooded with staff moving furniture inside. Guests cancelled their visits. Even the guards stayed under shelter. But Amina went out in the storm, barefoot, holding an umbrella, and there he was soaked to the bone, shivering, still sitting. She rushed to him. "Baba, why didn't you stay home? You'll catch cold." He looked up at her slowly. "My child, sometimes heaven watches not the storm, but who walks through it to give shelter." She pulled him up gently, helped him under the porch, and dried his hands with her scarf. He coughed a rough, deep sound. "Tomorrow, you come with me to the clinic," she insisted. "Please." He nodded once. "Tomorrow." But tomorrow never came, because the next morning, as the sun broke through the misty sky, the guards found him lying by the gate. Unconscious, barely breathing. They didn't move, just stood there, whispering. Zara rolled her eyes when she heard the commotion. "Is that beggar dead now?" But Amina heard the panic, saw the body, and ran. She fell to her knees beside him, his pulse faint, his breathing shallow, his lips dry. She grabbed his hand. "Baba, Baba, it's me, Amina. I'm here. Please, please stay with me." His eyes fluttered open for a brief second. Then he whispered, You were the only one who saw me. Then he went still. Amina screamed. She waved down a taxi with trembling hands, helped lift him inside, and rode with him to the hospital, her arms wrapped around his frail shoulders the whole way. At the hospital gate, the nurse tried to push her aside. No ID, no insurance, no space. Amina, with fire in her eyes, shouted, "He is not a beggar. He is a human being. Save him." It was the first time she had ever raised her voice in Lagos. The nurse finally relented. As they wheeled him in, a young doctor glanced at the man's face, then froze. That's not just anyone," he muttered. He turned to Amina. "Do you know who this is?" Amina shook her head. The doctor looked stunned. "That's Alhaji Musa Dauda. He owns half this neighborhood." Amina gasped. "But he's the man who sat at our gate." "Yes," the doctor said. "And that mansion? That's his too." The fluorescent lights of the hospital corridor buzzed faintly as Amina sat on the floor outside the intensive care unit, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her clothes were damp from the rain, her scarf twisted in her lap, her thoughts spiraled. Alhaji Musa Dauda, a billionaire? It didn't make sense. He drank tea from cracked mugs, he wore slippers with holes, he never asked for anything, and yet, here she was, sitting outside a room guarded by nurses and surrounded by whispers of lawyers, land documents, and secret wealth. It had been 3 days since she brought him in, 3 days of sitting, praying, fasting. No one from the Obasanjo household had called to check. No one cared. To them, he was just a mad old man. On the third night, a young woman in a tailored navy suit approached her. "You're Amina, yes?" Amina stood up quickly. "Yes, ma." The woman extended her hand. "My name is Zainab. I'm Alhaji Musa's personal legal assistant. He gave us your name 2 weeks ago. Said if anything happened to him, we were to contact you first." "Me?" Amina whispered, stunned. "But why?" Zainab smiled softly. "Because you were the only one who treated him with kindness. He saw everything, even when you thought he was just some forgotten man." Tears welled in Amina's eyes. Zainab continued, "He told me, this girl is not just kind, she has character, and if ever the storm comes, she should be the one standing in the sun." That night, Alhaji Musa briefly regained consciousness. Amina stood by his bedside, his hand resting gently in hers. His body was weak, but his eyes found hers. "Baba," she said softly, leaning close. He smiled faintly. "I've seen empires rise and fall," he whispered. "I've built towers and watched them crumble. But nothing compares to the peace I saw in your prayers." Amina began to cry. "You were never a beggar." He chuckled weakly. "But I was in need, not of food, but of faith. You gave it freely." His fingers squeezed hers lightly. "My time has come, but don't be afraid. You were seen." Amina held onto his hand tightly. "Please don't leave me," she whispered. He gave one final smile. Then his eyes closed and didn't open again. The heart monitor flatlined. A long beep. Silence. And Amina's world stopped for a moment. She didn't scream, she didn't collapse. She just stood there, tears flowing silently, and whispered, "May the heavens receive you with light, Baba." The next morning, the entire city buzzed with the news. Reclusive billionaire Alhaji Musa Dauda passes away in Lagos hospital. Mysterious fortune to be handed over to unnamed Maid, sources claim. Amina had no idea the storm that was coming. Back at the mansion, the Obasanjos were unaware until a fleet of black cars pulled up to the driveway 2 days later. Zara, lounging by the pool, looked up in confusion. "Are we expecting guests?" Chief Obasanjo stepped outside with a glass of wine, frowning. "Who are these people?" Then a tall man stepped out, holding a leather briefcase. "Good afternoon. I'm Barrister Ibrahim, executor of Alhaji Musa Dauda's estate. Kindly gather the household members. There is a will to be read." Madame Afe blinked. "Alhaji Musa, what do you mean? That beggar?" The lawyer raised an eyebrow. "Beggar? Madam, he owned this mansion. It was never yours. Silence. The staff gathered. The Obasanjo sat in disbelief, and then Amina walked through the front gate, escorted by Zainab. Zara leapt up. What is she doing here? The lawyer opened the folder. Alhaji Musa's final wish was clear. He observed how this household treated those beneath them. He came here not for rest, but for truth. He turned to Amina. In accordance with his will, this entire estate, all its holdings, and 80% of his liquid assets shall be transferred to Miss Amina Yusuf, the only person who saw him for who he truly was. Chaos exploded. Zara screamed. Madame F.A. fainted. Chief Obasanjo hurled his glass into a pillar. You can't be serious, Zara shouted. She's a maid. The lawyer didn't flinch. And yet she owns your house now. Amina stood frozen, eyes wide, trembling. This must be a joke, Dapo muttered. But the guards were already changing. Barrister Ibrahim added, You have 7 days to vacate the premises. A moving truck has been scheduled. You may apply for tenant assistance if needed. Zara turned to Amina, eyes red. You can't do this. Amina met her gaze calm, collected, quiet. I didn't do this, she said softly. He did. The air in the Obasanjo living room felt suffocating. The chandeliers no longer sparkled. The marbled floor felt cold. The entire house, once a symbol of their untouchable wealth, had suddenly become a stranger's inheritance. Amina stood silently near the entrance, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Her worn slippers, soaked from the rain, left faint marks on the pristine tile. But this time, no one dared comment. The lawyer, Barrister Ibrahim, placed the will on the grand table with reverence, like a sacred scroll. He cleared his throat. By the authority granted to me under the binding estate documents of Alhaji Musa Dauda, I am here to enact his final wishes, as witnessed and notarized 2 weeks prior to his passing. Chief Obasanjo sat stunned, clenching the arms of his velvet chair. Madame F.A. dabbed her eyes with a silk handkerchief, not from grief, but sheer disbelief. Zara, red-eyed and trembling, sat frozen, staring daggers at Amina. The lawyer continued. In life, Alhaji Musa owned 12 properties, 2 offshore accounts, 5 companies under alias ownership, and this mansion, which he used as an observation point during the final year of his life. Everyone blinked. He came here not to find comfort, but to observe character, Ibrahim said, looking around the room. He lived humbly, and he hid his name. But he watched, listened, and took notes. He turned to Amina. In his will, he wrote, and I quote, The one who gave me tea in silence, who knelt with me in the rain, who prayed for me without knowing my name, that is the one who shall inherit what I leave behind. Gasps filled the room. Chief Obasanjo barked, This is madness. My father and Musa were business partners. We hosted that old fool. The lawyer raised an eyebrow. Hosted or tolerated? He continued reading. To the Obasanjos who mocked humility and worshipped wealth, I leave nothing but the memory of who they could have been. Madame F.A. stood up, furious. You mean to tell me that girl owns all of this now? Barrister Ibrahim turned the will for them to see. Amina's name was written clearly, in bold ink, underlined 3 times. Beneficiary, Amina Yusuf. I don't want any of this, Amina finally whispered, her voice shaking. I only did what was right. Zainab, standing behind her, gently put a hand on her shoulder. That's why you were chosen. Zara stood abruptly, fury in her voice. Number, I won't leave. This is my home. I was born here. Amina turned to her, eyes clear, voice soft but powerful. You were born in a house, but you were never taught to be kind in it. Zara's lips parted, stunned by the calm blow. Chief Obasanjo tried to stand tall. You think you can just take this place from us, girl? Where will you even begin? Do you even know how to run a house? Amina looked around at the shining walls, the towering staircase, the expensive art, and then said, I know how to sweep every corner. I know what it means to sleep on the floor with rats. I know what it means to wash plates while you laugh in gold rooms. I know how to build, because I built myself. The silence that followed was thick and final. Barrister Ibrahim announced the legal procedures. The household would have 7 days to vacate. Security would be transferred to a new firm. The mansion's ownership had already been recorded with the Land Commission. There was no loophole, no out, just justice. Later that night, as the rain returned and lightning streaked the sky, Amina sat alone in what used to be Madame Effe's private garden, the same spot where she once knelt in prayer, mocked and barefoot. Now, she sat with her shoes on, a warm shawl around her shoulders, and a golden key in her hand. She didn't feel like a queen. She felt humbled, overwhelmed, grateful. Zainab joined her, handing her a cup of tea. "He chose right," she said. "You'll do more good with this house than they ever did." Amina nodded. "I don't want revenge." Zainab smiled. "It's not revenge, it's reward." A gentle breeze swept through the garden, and Amina closed her eyes, whispering a quiet prayer this time, not for rescue, but for wisdom. 7 days passed like a quiet storm. Moving trucks came and went. Laughter no longer echoed through the Obasanjo mansion. The grand halls, once alive with arrogance and mockery, now stood hollow, stripped of ego and excess. Amina did not throw them out. She didn't yell or take revenge. Instead, she let the will and the truth speak for her. Zara had tried to resist until the final day, but her father's frozen accounts made resistance futile. The last thing she said to Amina before leaving was, "One day you'll regret this." Amina had replied gently, "No one regrets being kind." By the end of the week, the mansion was hers legally, fully, and without contest. But Amina didn't celebrate. She walked barefoot through the halls she used to mop, touching the walls with reverence, not pride. She had no intention of living like the Obasanjos. She had something far greater in mind. She converted the West Wing into a community kitchen, where hungry children could eat without shame. She opened the garden to a local women's prayer circle, giving space to those who were mocked like her. She invited Mercy, the one househelp who had shown her kindness, to stay as the house manager, with full salary, healthcare, and dignity. As for the main hall, she left it untouched, because that's where Papa Musa used to sit on the steps during dusk, watching the sun disappear beyond the trees. One evening, Amina stood there, the setting sun glowing on her face. A young girl from the neighborhood approached shyly, holding her mother's hand. "Are you the woman who used to be the maid?" Amina knelt and smiled. "Yes, I was." "And now you live here?" "Yes," she said softly, "but I don't live here because I was loud or lucky. I live here because I never let their words change my prayers." The girl grinned, eyes wide with wonder. That night, Amina lit a candle in the garden, knelt like she always did, and whispered the prayer that had carried her from the storeroom to the stars. "Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. Thank you for listening when they only laughed. And thank you for making silence stronger than shouting." As the wind carried her words into the evening sky, the stars blinked down, and somewhere, in the stillness beyond the veil of life, Alhaji Musa Dauda smiled. He had chosen well, and the world, at last, had turned the right way.